I started ordering drugs off the dark web, and so I started buying what I thought was Xanax, but it wasn't Xanax, it was fentanyl. I had overdosed for 24 hours. I slowly started to black out again, and I thought to myself, I'm dead. And they hit me with 2 cans of Narcan, and I came back to life. The doctors, they were like, Chad, you really messed up your body. You could be on dialysis for the rest of your life. I'm thinking to myself, God, you brought me through this. You did not keep me alive for me to be a vegetable. 5-10 seconds later, I just get this electric shock in my back. I would like to preface just to start out by saying, unfortunately, I am an individual who struggled with drug addiction for about 12 years. I'm in my mid-30s now, but it took me till I was 29 to finally get it right. So I had gone to rehab in Youngstown, Ohio, called Ohio Valley Adult and Teen Challenge when I was 29. I completed the program. It was a year-long program. It was basically like a Bible boot camp. It was pretty difficult to get through, so anybody who can complete that program, they are amazing. So to keep going, I completed the program and I stayed up in Youngstown. I was working there still after I graduated as an ELP. So after a few years of working there, I saw a lot of people leave and overdose and die, and there were people that, I got close to, and it became really hard on me spiritually and mentally, just seeing all these people dying that I loved and grew to enjoy being around. So that was really difficult. So I've always worked in the medical field, so I decided to go to school to become a medical assistant. And so I did that. So I started working full-time at a GI clinic, assisting in colonoscopies and endoscopies, and I was also still working at Teen Challenge part-time. Well, it was a grind working both the jobs. I was working, 50-plus hours a week, and after about a year of doing that, I started getting really drained. I kind of started losing my focus on God. The enemy kind of started becoming louder in my head than God was. And I started focusing on him more than I was God. So I kind of slowly started drinking again by myself in my apartment after work. It became more and more and more to where I was getting pretty drunk by myself. I didn't have any other friends that were around to really hang out, frequently. Everyone that I knew was basically friends that I had met at a Teen Challenge. And I had a couple close friends, but they had families and kids and stuff like that, so I didn't get to see them too often. So anyways, I kind of slowly started drinking again, started smoking weed. I started ordering drugs off the dark web. I was super anxious, and so I started buying what I thought was Xanax, but it wasn't Xanax, it was fentanyl. And I had an accidental overdose one day. I had overdosed, I think it was on a Sunday night, because I was off work the following Monday. But I had overdosed, and I had overdosed for 24 hours. So during this time, my best friend up there that I had gone through the program with, he was getting married, and we were supposed to get fitted for tuxedos that week. And he was trying to get a hold of me Monday, and I wasn't answering, I wasn't responding. So, he kind of thought something was really going on. And so throughout the day, he kept trying to text me and call me, and I wasn't answering, and God instilled in him like a very worry that something was wrong with me. And so he ended up saying, hey, if you don't answer this time, I'm going to call the police and we're going to do a welfare check on you. And I'm coming over right now. Well, and then also at that time, my mom hadn't heard from me for a couple of days. And so she was getting worried, and she said if I didn't answer by the next day, that she was also going to do a welfare check on me. So this is late Monday. I've been OD'd on the ground all day, like for 24 hours. By the time my friend Corey showed up, it had been 24 hours. Any person would have been dead. I had collapsed on my hands. I had just like fallen hard. So during this, whenever I collapsed and I overdosed, I don't know how long I had been out, but I woke up from my blackout and I was laying on my hands in a very awkward position. My phone just happened to be right in front of my face. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what happened. All I know is that I could barely move my body, and I knew something was terribly wrong. So I pulled out. I was trying to get my hands out from under my body and, grab my phone and call for help. I could barely pull my right hand out from underneath my body, and I somehow knuckled into my phone. I don't even know how I did that. But I went to the last person that I had texted, which was a girl that I worked with. And I couldn't text, so I did a voice to text. And I said, hey, something is terribly wrong. I can't feel my body. I've collapsed. I don't know what's going on. Call 911. Well, I couldn't send it. And I was saying, send, send, send. And I couldn't send it with my hand. And I slowly started to black out again. And I thought to myself, I'm dead. And I knew that the next time I woke up, I was going to be in heaven. I was going to be in paradise, 100%. And, well, when I woke up, I wasn't in heaven. I was still here. So whenever I had blacked out again, my buddy Corey had showed up, and he was banging on the door, and he saw that my car was in the parking lot. And he could hear my phone ring, and he was also calling me. And he could hear my phone ringing, but I wasn't answering. So he just knew that something was terribly wrong. He just knew I was in my apartment, dead probably. So his girlfriend was with him, and Corey went downstairs because the ambulance showed up. And as he went downstairs, his girlfriend heard me moan. And so she screamed for Corey, and Corey came and kicked in the door, and there I was. I was OD'd on the floor. So the ambulance came in, and they hit me with 2 cans of Narcan, and I came back to life. It was the craziest experience I've ever lived through. It was like almost being born again. It was very intense. Apparently I aspirated. I got pneumonia. I don't remember a whole lot at this time. I just remember bits and pieces of being on the stretcher, being in the ambulance, getting to the hospital. Whenever I got to the ER, I just remember my pastor was there from my church that I was attending, and then Corey, and then another friend, and that was the last thing that I remember for a couple days, I guess. My kidneys had basically shut down. All my organs were shutting down. I started spiraling downhill really quick. I had to have a blood transfusion because I was losing blood. I had a Foley in for almost 2 weeks. Doctors were trying to figure out what was going on with me and why my kidneys kept shutting down and why I wasn't getting better. I started going into this hospital-induced delirium, and I was coming in and out of reality. I didn't know what was real and what wasn't. I was getting real confused. So they did a brain scan because they might have thought that I might have had some brain damage. So they did that. The MRI results came back clear. I was good. So that was amazing. I was in the hospital, just covered in IVs. I was unable to move. I was just in the hospital bed, basically a vegetable. It was so painful just to even move my hand an inch. I could barely open my mouth. My body was swollen because my kidneys weren't working, so I wasn't filtering out any liquids. I was just like an inflated balloon. My face was just, I guess, whenever I collapsed, I'd face planted. I had bruises and just giant scabs on my face. It looked like Mike Tyson just right hooked me. When I fell, I guess I had scabs all up my arm. They thought I might have had compartment syndrome because I was just in one place for so long. Luckily, I didn't, because that would have been a horrible recovery. It was still taking a couple weeks for my kidneys to kick in. All the doctors were coming in and out and saying, you don't know how lucky you are to be alive. No one has ever survived this before. And just this whole time I was questioning God, why did you keep me alive? Like, why me? You hear of all these movie stars, famous sports people, they overdose and they die. And I just thought, why me? Like, I'm nothing. And, I just never really got an answer until after I kind of recovered and got out of the hospital. God had just told me to tell my story. And so that's what I'm doing. But so about 2 weeks into the hospital, I had to get put on dialysis. So I had a dialysis port in up here. And I was going to dialysis every other day for 4 hours. I was still unable to move. I could barely eat. I was just in a vegetable state, and I was miserable, but I was trying to stay positive. I was trying to stay strong. Luckily, I was in good health prior to this, so that really helped me out in my recovery. So there were a lot of sleepless nights and just a lot of times that I wanted to give up, and there were a couple of times where I would just break down and cry. My mom was there the whole time. I mean, she is such a saint, and I feel so bad for what I did to her, but it was really hard. It was really hard to stay strong. And luckily, my pastor was coming up to see me every day, almost. My mom was there. So I had support and I had love. And I was just trying to figure out, like, how did this happen again, And there's just a lot of things whenever you become ungrateful and you feel like you deserve more. I just felt like I was just... I don't know why I did what I did, but the enemy had gotten a hold of me again. But so anyways, one day, it's about 2 weeks in, I'm laying in bed, still just stuck. I can barely move. It's so painful to do anything. I can't do anything. And I just remember laying there, and I'm thinking to myself, God, you brought me through this. You did not keep me alive for me to be a vegetable. Please do something. And not 5-10 seconds later, I just get this electric shock in my back. And I was like, whoa. I could kind of start moving my body again. I could slowly kind of move my arms around, kind of move my fingers, and it wasn't painful. The next day, I could kind of move my legs a little bit. It didn't hurt. The next day after that, my core strength started coming back. I could kind of sit up on my own, and it wasn't painful. The next day, like my jaw was loosening up. I was able to open my mouth and like eat food. And so I just slowly started gradually, progressively getting better. And the doctors, before this happened, they were like, Chad, you really messed up your body. You could be on dialysis for the rest of your life. I was having occupational therapists, physical therapists coming in to kind of teach me how to walk again. I couldn't walk. I mean, I was so weak, I could barely hold myself up. They were like, yeah, we're going to have to show you how to do some things to live on your own because you can't even put your socks on. You're going to have to use these resources and these tools to help you out. in your living situation. And I just thought to myself, this is crazy that I'm having to do this. I never would have thought in a million years that I would have overdosed and like been in this position and having to do this to like learn how to like do life again. So anyways, after I had that electric shock and after like 4 days, 5 days, I was almost up and doing everything on my own. And the doctors were just astounded. They were like, wow, you just bounced back so quick. I was still on dialysis, but I wasn't having to go as much. They said that I could be on it for, 6 months, 3 years, for the rest of my life. And I just knew, I was like, no, I'm not. God didn't bring me through this to be having to do this, to be on dialysis for the rest of my life. I could have been wrong, but I just knew in my heart, I was like, God did not keep me alive for me to be in this state. And so I ended up being in the hospital for 3 weeks. That last week, I was up out of my bed, roaming the hallways, talking to all the nurses, laughing, I was back to normal, basically. I still had some nerve damage in my hands from when I'd fallen. My body was still healing, but Chad was back. And so afterwards, I get out of the hospital 3 weeks later. I slowly started getting my strength back. I would walk half a mile. What was really hard for me was, as a bass player, I was not able to use my hands for a long time. And that was really hard for me because I love music so much and I love playing music so much. It's just like such a huge part of my life. And that was really hard. But yeah, after going to physical therapy, regaining my strength, and after about 6 months, I was almost fully back to perfect health. Fast forward, that was 2.5 years ago. I have perfect health now. I still have slight nerve damage in my ulnar nerves, so my pinkies kind of still have some nerve damage in them. So after that, after the incident and everything, I decided that I was going to move back home to Arkansas because I'm from here. So my parents agreed that they would let me move back home and I could start fresh. So I moved back here 2.5 years ago, late September. So I get back here, I'm kind of church shopping and all this stuff and trying to find a good church to start going to. And I went through several, and I was on Google and I came across Trinity Fellowship, and God started speaking to me and I just started crying, and he said, this is your new home. And this is where you're going to tell your story. And so here I am doing God's work, and I just want to share my testimony. I want it to reach people who struggle. I want to reach people that have struggled with drug addiction or anything like that. And I just want to say that never be ashamed of your past, because it will hold you in bondage. And it just gives a foothold for the enemy to keep working in your life, and it hinders what God wants to do in your life. And so never be ashamed of where you came from.